so I can sleep on my back. And there were times if I rolled over and realized it, I would literally, I don't know about jumping, but kind of jump out of bed because if the bubble burst, I would lose my vision. It's pretty simple when you have retina surgery for a hole and tears and stuff like that. So going to sleep knowing that it didn't matter if I rolled over or not, I got 6 hours of consecutive sleep last night, Jimmy. It's the first time I've done that. I know since my eye went bad. And not only that, I can't tell you how many nights I've been doing the show where I'm getting 3 hours sleep. And it was affecting me and affecting the show and affecting how you feel. So I feel like a brand new person today. Hopefully you can tell a difference. Do I seem like I have more energy, Jimmy?
You seem more chipper.
Yeah, well, there's 1,000 pounds off your shoulders when you go through eye surgery, and it looks like I'm on the other side. So it's a beautiful thing. No gas bubble. Surgeon says I can do all kinds of things, and it's lovely. Okay, the Bush Hampton. Now, I love it when a coach gives you an honest answer, especially when a BS answer is available. And I'm going to defend the coach for a second because sometimes you ask a question and you really can't give the answer. You can't. I get it. In the early 80s and late 70s, when I got into TV, it bothered me about the honesty part. And then it took me a while to kind of figure out, well, if you're asked this question, how would you answer? And so sometimes coaches are put in a box. For example, to be simplistic, hey, you think you're ever going to look for a job? Oh, yeah, I've just gotten 4 phone calls and my agent is talking to, but you can't do that. You know that. So coaches as a public person are often put in bad spots. What I love is when a coach is brutally honest. Here's the deal. I have said this before. No one else, I believe, anywhere, and if somebody has on a show or in print, I still call it print somewhere, has said this, please tell me, and I will say someone else said it. I said this a long, long time ago. Bush Hampton at Boise State had more talent than he had last year here. And please don't give me this garbage. Well, it's Boise State. It's a different level. Stop it. Jimmy will tell you who was the number 1 running back drafted in the NFL this past year.
I believe Ashton Genty was his name.
Yeah, and 2 years ago, before he was a household name, I was saying many times on the air, 2 years ago, not last year when he blew up like crazy, he was the best running back in the country. When Bush Hampton was there, he had 2 better quarterbacks in his last year than he had last year at Kentucky. I'm serious. His offensive line at Boise State was better. His wideouts were better. I'm telling you, and we haven't seen the real Bush Hampton. We have not. There are all kinds of things he wanted to do last year, and I don't think this will ever admit. I just don't. And I wouldn't blame him if he doesn't. There's all kinds of things he wanted to do last year. He couldn't call the plays. Couldn't call them. Because you're in situations with how many yards left and how many downs and that kind of stuff. You can't do what you want to do. He was hamstrung. Okay? Not going to complain about it, but that's just the way it is. And I don't expect him to come in front of a microphone. Yeah, you know what? You really didn't see me last year because my talent stunk. And then some things I'd like to do, I couldn't do. No coach is going to do that. Do I think that's true? I know it's true, by the way. I know it's true. I don't think it. I know it's true. And if they want to dispute it, that's fine. They're not going to try. No politics here. Okay. So I'm getting to the part where he was really, 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 really honest. Okay. Now, yesterday I said my prediction is this team is going to a bowl game. I stand by that. I believe it. I've kind of believed it for a week, but I waited and waited and waited before I would say it because, one, I wanted to be sure, at least with my thought, it's a prediction. It's what is it worth? What a prediction is, okay? And 2, I never want to sound like a homer because now it's positive talk season and all of a sudden you're feeling better about it, but I've analyzed the team and I've been saying for a while, this will be quite a while, this will be a much better offensive line. Will it be the big blue wall? I'm not predicting it. Will it be better than last year? Tons better than last year. We will see. You got some really good pieces on that offensive line. Really do. Okay, so the quarterbacking this year, whoever plays will be better. Okay? The running backs, they got 4 of them. I keep on saying that will absolutely be better. So quarterback, offensive lines, tight ends, all better. Wideouts, got no clue. Got no clue. None at all. So Here's the honest answer. Bush Hamden, offensive coordinator. Do you have a feel who's going to step up? Do you have a feel who's going to jump forward? Do you have a feel who your number one guy is? Here's his answer. And listen to the words. It's a beautiful answer.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't have an honest answer to that. I think there has been some inconsistency or holding certain guys to that standard of being the one, and to be that one, it's got to be every single day. But then from a depth standpoint, it has been impressive.
So there you have it. He doesn't know. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. I love it. I love the answer. In other words, this is a man who I happen to think is really smart. And I said it from the day he committed here because I know people that know him back in Idaho, okay, who were upset that he left Boise to come here. And I get it. So we shall see. We shall see. By the way, I watch Boise State all the time because I did TV there 1,000 years ago. And in 1979, they beat Eastern Kentucky for the 1AA National Championship. And my TV station didn't send me, and I was embarrassed. They sent the other stations, and a guy named Joe Aliotti. It's not 1,000,000 to 1 anybody knows who this person is. His brother ended up being a real good defensive coordinator. Didn't have a strong arm, had a great touch. He threw lollipop throws. And one of the great scramblers I've ever seen. He gets a snap, runs all the way to the right, can't find anybody, spins around. Now he's a righty, goes all the way to the left. And then he throws a pass because he had no arm, but he throws a pass like a punt, and it's hanging in the air and 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 hanging. I'm serious. It's like the ball was never going to come down. And there's a guy named Dupree, tight end. I think his number was 89. Anyway, he's in the corner of the end zone. And the DBs are running like crazy. They couldn't catch up to him. And all he had to do was catch the ball. And I remember talking to him afterwards. He says, oh, my gosh, I kept on saying to myself, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it. And that was the play at the end that they beat Eastern Kentucky for the national championship. The point is that I watched Boise State all the time, either the entire game or probably half the time in a highlight package. That's what I do. So I follow them. And I'm telling you, he had more talent his last year at Boise State offensively than was at Kentucky, period. I don't even doubt it. I don't even question it. I don't at all. Okay, I want to get to the NIL deal. And when this NIL deal came out, I explained it. And then the next day, with more information, I explained it again. And I'm going to do this. This is not chomping on anybody, but from what I understand, and if I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong. But I have great sources with this. And so there's some bad information out that he's put out to 50 stations and he's, podcasts and all kinds of stuff. Okay, Jimmy, for argument's sake, you're a quarterback and you're coming to Kentucky. You ready?
Yes.
Okay, you think you're getting $1 million. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Will you settle for $1 million?
If I have to, I'll make it work.
Begrudgingly.
As a college quarterback, yes.
Okay. So, you find out your tuition, your board, all kinds of stuff like that, and your revenue share number. Then it's an NIL projection, not promised. So let's say you're expecting to get $1 million. You still with me?
Yeah.
If you don't get $1 million, JMI is not on the hook for the money. And Matt Jones said today that if they don't come up with it, JMI is on the hook. First of all, from a business point of view, why the hell would you do that? Because you could lose a fortune. You really could. Your company can go under. Kids, now there's pressure. Jimmy, you're a really good quarterback, and it's between you and Tennessee and Vandy and Oshkosh and whatever. And so the pressure's on. You got to come up with the money, all that kind of stuff. And now you end up offering more than you want to. That's business. It happens so many times. And now you can't get the money back. Let's say that you start playing, and halfway through the season, guess what? You stink. And you've raised X amount of dollars, but you need to raise more, and now nobody wants to help. Now, conversely, you don't stink. You're playing great, and you can probably raise more. They are not guaranteeing money, JMI. And if I'm wrong, I will apologize. They are not. Here's what they are doing, and I explained this right when it happened. I'll explain it today. Okay? JMI has tons of companies that they work with. They would like if you, Jimmy, the quarterback, would exclusively use them. Okay? You don't have to exclusively use them. So let's say that you get X number of deals through the auspices of JMI, yet you also have an agent. You can have an agent. Why not? And your agent gets you this deal, and that deal. That's okay. You can get it from different places. Now, would JMI like that you did all their deals for them? Of course they would. But there are people that will have somebody come to them and say, hey, we'd like you to do blank, 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 and you don't have to use JMI. And I think that's fair, by the way. I do think it's fair. And if you bring, let's say, a deal to JMI and you don't have an agent, will they negotiate for you? They will. They will. But JMI is not guaranteeing money to a prospective athlete. And if you think about it, when you're not supposed to, and I think this is going to be abused, okay? It's not like, oh, okay, so-and-so will pay you X and you're coming to Kentucky and you get the money and maybe it might not be coming from the university, wink, 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 but somebody who's a booster from the university will say, we will cover this, which has been happening like crazy. That's not supposed to happen anymore. Will it? Yeah, I think it will. Because I don't know how the hell you're going to police all that, but that's not the point. I just wanted to explain that JMI is not on the hook if the projection is met. And Jimmy, doesn't that make sense? Can you imagine you have 5 deals, right? And you got 5 kids that you're promised between $1 million and $1.5 million. I'm just throwing numbers out there, and you only get 500,000, which seems like a lot of money. But can you imagine being a company like JMI and all of a sudden you're out millions of dollars? It's not how you do business. I can't imagine in my wildest dreams. I can't imagine a company, any company in America, agreeing to that. I really can't. Why would you put yourself on that hook? Jimmy, was that explained that you think you and everybody can understand?
I think so. All the stuff with this NIL and the money, it's all, to me, I hear it all as mumbo jumbo. It's just so much that it's a lot to take in.
Okay, let me give you a headline service. You want $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're getting your money with your share of the 20.5 million, which is not 20.5, which I was the first to explain, after all the scholarships. You're taking $2.5 million off the top. How the school's divided up, everybody's going to be a little different. Whatever you share of that, you're told right away. Your books, room, board, all that stuff, yada, 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 explain right away. You can have an agent. Nothing wrong with that. You can also use JMI. JMI is an advantage because they're already dealing with tons of companies. They're dealing with tons of companies. That should help you get money, but that doesn't have to be good enough. And that's not a negative comment to JMI or anybody in the world. If you have a lawyer, a friend, a family friend, or something like that who can negotiate deals for you, God bless. Look at all the kids who had agents last year. So you can actually, in an odd way, have 2 agents. And that's okay. And that's okay. And so if an agent, not JMI, gets you a deal, let's say they're paying you $20,000 for cars or something like that, JMI doesn't get a cut. If they don't do it, they don't get anything. And they shouldn't. But if JMI negotiates a deal, they got to get paid too. Nobody does anything for nothing. Was that a more simplistic way of explaining it?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. You have the agent gets the credit, JMI doesn't. Because they didn't help you. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But you can do that. There was some speculation early on that you couldn't have an agent. And I don't know if you remember me saying it, I never thought that would fly. I think it's, in an odd way, unconstitutional. Why should a player have to be bound exclusively to a company? And that has nothing to do with JMI. It doesn't make any sense. Nor could you stop it. And on top of it, that would fester more things going under the table.
Oh, yeah, because then it turns into just a monopoly, basically. We are in control of everything that every single one of you get.
And now how about this?
Only us.
Yeah, and let's amplify what you just said, Jimmy. Okay, so you're, and come on, you're the star tailback, and you think the quarterback is getting more love from a company. I'm not saying JMI. Favoritism, okay? Let's say you think, the quarterback gets everything. I don't get anything. And I deserve more. You ever been in a locker room where one player thinks they deserve more than another? Hello? Well, you can get it another way. I'll never forget Keenan Burton. When we just started the show, was in the studio, And we were talking about NIL. And Jimmy, I bet you remember this because I made such a big deal of it. Keenan Burton was one of the leaders that turned around this program under Rich Brooks. Great leader, Dickie Lyons and Jacob Tammy and Keenan Burton and a few others. Great leader and a kind person and a smart person. But what he said was so honest, I loved it. He said, and he and Andre Woodson were really close. So if you think there's a hidden message here, there's no hidden message. He said, hey, look, and this is the figure he used, and it was nebulous numbers throwing out there. You know, I asked him the obvious at the time. What do you think of NIL and jealousy in the locker rooms and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? And he said, look, if I'm getting $250,000, and remember how good he was, okay? And I still think if he was healthy and treated right, he would have a longer career in the NFL. Don't get me started, but I really think okay. I'm pausing because I'm adding some information here. When JMI does a deal, all the deals, and I hadn't mentioned this time, but I have in the past, have to go through the NIL, their NIL, what's called Go system. But amplifying again, JMI is not negotiating, I don't care what you hear on another radio station, is not negotiating with a player to come to Kentucky. An athlete has to say, I'm coming to UK. JMI can't just call, Jimmy, you're the quarterback, okay? And it's between you and Tennessee and Oshkosh and whatever. JMI is not calling you to say, I will get you this deal. They're not doing that. They're not negotiating with you. Trust the source. We'll just leave it at that. And so not only are not negotiating, they are hopefully going to be responsible for NIL deals, which also has to go through the system. And one of the reasons the system that they made up, Jimmy, let's say, you know, a car dealership wants to pay you $200,000, but you're not doing any work. They have to decide if that work is commensurate to getting that kind of money. And they could say no to that. So did I just make it more confusing, or I'm just throwing another tidbit in there, as this thing is complicated? Did I throw you off, Jimmy? Because it's important as a football player, and you're listening, because if you don't get it, then I have to re-explain, as some of the stuff is going on the fly. The other stuff I knew way before here, but go ahead.
No, what you just said just then cleared what you had said before. Like, that was a simpler explanation. Pretty
Excellent. Much. I thought it was too, but I was hoping you were saying that, but I don't, you know. Okay, so basically, JMI is not negotiating with a quarterback to come here, okay? You come here. Now, we hope you sit down with JMI. It would be smart for any athlete to sit down with JMI. Why would you not want to sit down with JMI? They have all these companies that they're hooked up to that they can sell you to them. Okay? So you'd be crazy not to. But by the same token, too, you can still cut a deal on your own. You can still have your own agent. But not sitting down with JMI, seriously, I'm not shilling for JMI, but it's a pretty simple deal. It's a very respected company, and if you are dealing with somebody who's got tons of companies within their system that they can approach, why would you not want to use it? You don't have to, and you can still go from the outside. Now, Jimmy, do you think it's explained properly?
Yes. The last couple minutes were a lot more clearer.
Okay.
With the description.
But they are not on the hook, which was the first part of this. Contrary to what Matt said, they are not on the hook for dollars. Hi, we're going to promise you $1 million. Guess what? We better come up with it. Otherwise, if we only come up with $500,000, we got to write you a check for $500,000. That is not going to happen. I wasn't expecting to go 24 minutes on this. It was not the goal starting this out. What do you think the odds are, the percentage of the audience that understood all that? I would like to think a lot. I think I have a smart audience. It's more of a comment, did I explain it properly? And this is complicated. Give me a grade, Jimmy, whatever it is, A, B, C, D, F, or...
I would say a little over half of the people listening understood it and then could regurgitate it in a way that, like, now they understand. I think most fans just look at this and they say, Okay, well, I still just want to watch the games on Saturday. How does this affect me as a fan watching the games on Saturday, and do I need to know all of this?
And I agree with that, but let me throw a caveat, and I bet you agree with me. If Kentucky starts losing a lot of players because it's deemed they don't have enough money, then I think people will go, this is Kentucky. What's the matter? Can't we get these players? What's wrong? So I think that's part of it. The other part goes to you, which I agree with. Hey, I just want to watch the game on Saturday. But this is news, and it's what we talk about. And so if Kentucky's – look, do I think Mark Pope got every player that he wanted based upon the money part? I do not. Do I think Mark Pope did a great job? I do. Do I think that Mark Pope got outbid in one or two cases? I would say probably yes. Is that a negative comment to Pope in UK? No. No, you're not going to get everybody you want. And it's not all about money. So the point is this. If Pope, and I'm purposely getting away from football, if Pope all of a sudden, and certain things will leak out that to me is probably good for the temperature of what's going on. You hear that 10 players that Pope wanted and really wanted and were close to getting didn't come to Kentucky because there wasn't enough money, and got outbid. Jimmy, how ticked off would people be?
Very.
Okay. The other thing is, do you think people really understand that even though it's Kentucky, you're going to get outbid every now and then because maybe your school is desperate? Maybe your school needs a certain kid so bad to save a coach's fanny somewhere else where Kentucky might have a whole bunch of really good players and they only have one or two, but they have other players and they have to really step out of line and step ahead and pay more than Kentucky thinks that they're going to pay to get a kid. That's going to happen. Yes?
Oh, absolutely.
And I do think there are some fans that don't like that. And I've seen something on Twitter. Well, did we get beat out by a kid who went to Indiana because it was more money? It's going to happen. The thing is, does it happen a lot or a little? I don't think there's anybody out there in any school, in all the blue bloods, in football and basketball is going to get everybody that they want based just, on the money that will pay the most money. I honestly believe that there's more kids. I'm going to repeat this. There's more kids who take less money to go someplace where they want to go. I know it's true. The percentage, have no clue. I'm not going to even bother guessing. Not going to bother guessing. I have no idea to know, but I know it's true. I know examples where it's true. I know examples where I've talked to people. Actually, I've given a couple examples on the air. A couple other examples that I know I was asked not to say, so guess what? I'm not going to say. It's a very simple thing. This half hour went really fast. Or was it me, Jimmy?
No, it did go by very fast. And I think the NIL thing, it will only become a front and center thing for most fans when, like you said, you start losing too many players to other schools from it. That's when fans will go, wait a second, what's going on with our NIL? Then they'll look into it more. Now it's just so much like, all right, I just want to watch the games. But when it becomes a negative thing for your program, then fans will start picking up on it and looking in and understanding more.
Absolutely. And the other thing, too, is we might not really know exactly what that number is because a lot of this stuff is rumors. It's just like, who came out with a story? I don't remember. Wasn't it $20 million? Somebody said Kentucky was spending north of $20 million for the team. Do I think they spent $10 million? No, I think they spent more. Can I swear to it? No. Have I talked to enough people? Yes. Do I know if it's 20? I got no clue. Now, I don't remember who reported. I'm not shilling on the name saying or not saying. That person has some natural sources. And here's what also happens. Real quick. Let's say you're a national name and you're trusted by coaches. And by the way, there's not a lot of them who are really trusted by coaches. Okay? And so you're talking to, let's say, a coach, whether it's Auburn or Tennessee or something like that, and they didn't get a certain player. Could be sour grapes, could be not sour grapes, or you hear something in the grapevine. And that another school, whether it's Kentucky or somebody else, paid X for this particular player. And trust me, coaches hear a lot. Okay, they hear a lot. They're not going to be broadcasting what a certain player made because guess what? Somebody else will hear the same thing about them and they'll start saying something. So, Jimmy, it's like a code, okay? And you'll maybe tell a few trusted people. And assistant coaches tell other assistant coaches. And some coaches, head coaches will say, did you see that so-and-so played X for so-and-so? And they'll say, yeah. So there's more of what I would call an underground railroad for understanding of what's going on than people think. Did you get that, Jimmy? Do you think the public got that?
I think so.
Okay. I'm being too sensitive here. But part of it is because, Jimmy, you're absolutely right. People want to say, I just want to watch the damn game. But I do think there are some, I think there's more people that are on your side, what you're saying, Jimmy. I couldn't agree with you more. People just want to watch the damn game. I get it. But there are some that are curious. And then there's some curious because they want to know pride-wise, Kentucky's number one when it comes to basketball, whatever. And there were some schools last year, like at Kansas State and some others, who spent a lot of money and they didn't pick the right players or the chemistry wasn't good and there were problems. So money doesn't get you championships. It helps. It helps. I tell you what helps. I'll tell you what will help you. Let's say you're in Louisville listening to the show. Thank you very much. Or Cincinnati or Indianapolis. Okay, and you have Subaru dealers around you. But I can tell you, if you take the drive to Lexington, you have a great Subaru dealer. It's the Quantrill Auto Group, and they have a deal through the end of the month that is absolutely spectacular. I think everybody knows the Outback is a special car. So you think about an Outback, you talk about, as they say, now's the right time to do it. 0% interest, 0% interest for 36 months. And if you want to spread it out to 72 months, it's 1.9% for 72 months. What a deal. 0% interest for 36 months. And don't forget, the Quantrill family of dealerships is the right place to get your next Subaru, and they promise to get you the best in sales, service, and no gimmicks. Mark's story coming up next, Dr. John Wong at 1 o'clock. And I have energy for the first time since Memorial Day weekend. What a summer it's been. I got sleep last night. What a blessing. What a blessing. What a blessing. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your stories. Next, Dr. John Wong is after that. Alan Cutler, 1300 AM, 92.5 FM.
No Filter Radio with Alan Cutler, brought to you by Quantrill Auto Group. QuantrillForLife.com.
Hi, this is Alan Cutler. Have a no filter comment? Hit the text line, 859.
Machine, I'm dealing with somebody that's actually paying attention to what I'm doing, and it made me feel really good.
And that's how Republic Bank helps their customers go from living to thriving. Learn more at republicbank.com. Member FDIC.
It's summertime, and that means it's time to hit the road. Whether you're heading across town or across the state, going on a picnic, to a baseball game, or driving to the lake, stop by, fill up, and stock up at Clark's Pump and Shop, your road trip headquarters.
Clark's Pump and Shop has everything you need to get you to your summertime destination, including assorted Jolly Rancher or Twizzler peg bags, 2 for $5, and Jack Link's 2-ounce steak strip or extra large beef and cheese, 2 for $6.
Clark's Pump and Shop, return, refresh, refuel.
Back to No Filter Radio with Alan Cutler. Podcasts on Apple, Spotify, and Google, Monday through Friday.
Welcome back. Alan Cutler, 1300 AM, 92.5 FM. Pleased and honored to have veteran. I hope he's okay with the word veteran. Notice I didn't say old. I'm old. He's veteran. Mark Story, a longtime columnist of the Lexington Herald-Leader. Hello, Mark. You okay with veteran?
Tomorrow will be my 35-year anniversary as an employee of the Lexington Herald-Leader.
Wow. Mazel tov. I can't help myself, Mark. You're a dying breed, dude. There's not going to be a lot of 35 years people started staying in one company starting now. Wouldn't you agree?
I would guess not, the way the world has changed. It's interesting. The Herald Leader Sports Department has been a really good place to work. People have stayed. In those 35 years, I think I've only worked with 12 or 13 other writers, and I was the third youngest sports writer into my 50s. So it's really weird now to be sort of a senior figure.
You're kind of like grandfather or grandpa. Anybody put a name on you, or thankfully
No, they're too nice to do that.
I got to tell you, as people have moved on with time, and I mean this sincerely. Actually, I was talking to Dick Hoops Weiss about this morning. We were talking. You guys, and I'm assuming it's not you, and that's no disrespect. I can't imagine you do any hiring. Maybe they might ask you about somebody, but whoever's been done the hiring the last number of years, the young people who have replaced, for example, Tipton's in the Hall of Fame. There's a reason why Jerry's in the Hall of Fame, but I think Ben Roberts does a hell of a job. And so picking people is huge, and you guys have done a really, really nice job of picking younger people who are, and I say this with kindness, and I do when I use this word, they're grinders. They work hard and they're good at what they do. So you've replaced people that had to be replaced with Father Time, as John hung up his at least computer screen for now. You've replaced older people who have moved on with some really good young people. It's a credit to you guys.
Yeah, our young people are really good. Ben, I think, is 1 year from his 20-year Herald Leader anniversary, so I don't know that technically he would fall in the young people category, but people like Caroline McCoskis and Cam Drummond that we've hired out of college are really good, really good. And then we have Ben and Jared Peck and John Hale. I mean, this is a very strong staff.
My problem with Ben is he just looks young. And I'm probably jealous, Mark. I knew he was double digits, but I didn't know it was close to around 20 years. I would have guessed 8 or 10 years, and I'd have been way off.
Yeah, he's been there longer than you think.
Obviously. Okay, so, predictions, they're what it's worth. So mine is what it's worth. I spent a long time thinking about this, which I don't like. A lot of what I do is I read, I study, whatever, and then I just talk. And it took me about a week to sit on it, but I think Kentucky's going to go to a bowl game. I'm not saying 8 wins or 9 wins. I'm just saying a bowl game. Do you have a thought, or did I ask you this once and you said you're saving it for the Herald Leader, or optimistic, pessimistic, cautious about what's going on?
I wanted to get them to a bowl game. I really wanted to get them to at least 6 wins. When I actually picked it, I picked it at 5-7. I think it's going to be it almost has to be a better team than the team that played the second half of last year. But I do think they're going to be better. And I think there's a chance that the schedule, which appears to be brutal, there are some teams that are ranked high that I wonder about a little bit. I wonder about Ole Miss. I wonder a little bit about South Carolina. I wonder about Tennessee, frankly. The 2 games that, just based on the schedule, really set up well for Kentucky. One is at Georgia, because the week before Georgia plays Alabama, and the week after they play Auburn, which those are 2 huge games for Georgia. I just doubt that Kentucky is good enough, even if you get Georgia flat, to beat them in Athens. The other game that sets up great for Kentucky is Tennessee. They play at Alabama the week before. They have Oklahoma at home the week after. They'll be on the road a second straight week. Get them in Lexington. The problem with that is Kentucky never wins that game. But those are the 2 games that, based on the schedule, I think set up really well for Kentucky.
It's nice to say, well, we'll play every opponent the same way. That's not the real world. Coaches might push it. And Kentucky being, part of the Oreo cookie in between those 2 teams might help them when they play Georgia. Plus, the other factors all too well. Sometimes you get really sore when you get beat up, or how many times did Kirby Smart? And I'm curious, did you think Kirby Smart was just saying this out of respect to Stoops, or did he believe it? I kind of thought he did believe it, and you don't know what's in a guy's heart, that there were times where Kentucky was so physical, they kind of had their way pound for pound, smacking equally with Georgia, and that can make a team really sore for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think Kirby Smart respects Stoops. I think they coach in a similar manner. Obviously, Georgia has more talent to coach in that particular style. But yeah, I think especially games in Lexington have really been, physical wars. That game last year, the Kentucky defense that played last year against Georgia and Ole Miss was one of the 10 best defenses in the country. Obviously the defense that played the last half of the season, I think Kentucky gave up an average of 263 rushing yards a game in its last 5 games against power conference teams. I mean, that was horrible.
It was horrible. I knew it was over 200. I didn't realize it was 260. I mean, 200 is horrible. 260 is past horrendous. Here's my theory on Bush Hamden, and please agree or disagree. I have more ties to Boise State than you do for obvious reasons because I work there. And so I've always watched their games, or I look at the highlight package, and I've stayed up with them through the years. And as I've said on the show many times, people in Boise were upset when Bush Hamden left to come here. I really believe, not knocking anybody, that his last year at Boise State, he had more talent than was here. He had better quarterbacks. He had a great, great, great running back that I was bragging on before it became popular, Genty, who's making a lot of money now in the NFL. His wideouts were better. His offensive line was better. And I really believe there were things he wanted to do last year but couldn't because of down and distance, and couldn't because he didn't have the talent, and couldn't because he was worried about protecting the quarterback. And I think, and that's why I'm emphasizing the word think, Mark, I think you're going to see his play calling being different this year because he's able to call a game differently when you think you might be able to make a 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and 1 or maybe 3rd and 2.5 running the ball, so you can do different kinds of things. I think the play calling still is going to be run, but I think it's going to be a little different. Does that sound preposterous to you?
No, I think Bush probably deserved a mulligan off for last year, got the job late. As it turned out, they had major offensive line problems. It's hard to call an offense when you have no hope of protecting your quarterback in an obvious passing situation, and that was pretty much where they were. And I also, as you said, I don't know that the skill players, I don't know that they were that talented at running back, and obviously we thought they were talented at wide receiver, but that's mitigated when you can't protect the quarterback. So yeah, I think there's a chance that I think we should get a better true read of what he wants to do and kind of what his offense looks like. And the thing about running the football, you look at the good Stoops teams, they've been able to run the ball and stop the run. And for all the excitement that was created with Tim Couch during the air raid period, the 5 best UK football teams in my lifetime, which would be the SEC co-championship team in 76, the 10-1 team in 77, the 9-win team in 84, and the 2 10-win teams under Stoops. All 5 of those teams ran the football and played good defense. So, they need to get back to running it and stopping the run, and that's the path to getting back into the postseason.
And that's the path that Mark Stoops, that's his mantras. That's what he's absolutely unequivocally all about. Yeah, if they can stop the run and run on 3rd and 1, I think there's plenty of hope for the season. And I like the fact that they're playing Ole Miss early. Their young quarterback who's waited for a couple of years, I'm going blank on the name. I've now watched a bunch of tape of him. He's really talented and really cocky. And I think he's going to be a special quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be as good as Jason Dart was last year in week number 2. Could be wrong, but I think catching Ole Miss early will help, especially if you beat the Rockets from Toledo.
Yeah, I think Toledo is going to be. I think that's a tricky game. I think they're pretty good, cut above your normal MAC team, and it's a veteran team. So your Kentucky coming off a horrible year with 50 new players, and that's a challenging opener. But obviously, it's a game they really need to win. And I agree with you. I think they have a pretty good chance to beat Mississippi in what will be Austin Simmons' first road start.
Is there a player or two? It's probably not fair, Mark, with so many unknowns that you're saying, I can't wait to watch blank, blank, blank. And let me finish the second thought. I know for me, and I bet it is for you, there are going to be some kids who blossom that you're going, oh, I didn't see this coming, but I didn't see Max Harrison 3 years ago doing what he did. And there's been a whole lot of UK players that just with another year grow and develop that I know I'm surprised a lot with, and I'm sure a lot of kids have surprised you. Do you have a couple players who I can't wait to see this, and saying, man, maybe 3 or 4 kids that we don't know will pop out?
Well, I'm really curious to see the running backs. It sounds like they're prioritizing the transfers, Dante Dowdell from Nebraska and Seth McGowan, who started at Oklahoma and came here from New Mexico State. So I'm anxious to see what they're all about. I'm very curious about the wide receivers. I think it's worrisome that they issued a depth chart and they didn't have one clear starter at any of the three wide receiver positions. Every one of the positions was an either or. Maybe that means they're really deep and just have a lot of good players, but that worries me. I'm anxious to see the two transfer defensive linemen, David Gusta from Washington State, and then the kid from South Dakota, Humphrey Grace, who had put up huge disruption numbers last year. McKees Humphrey Grace, and put up just huge disruption numbers at South Dakota last year.
Questions. I use this in the monologue, and I know you heard it. I'm sure you were there, but I want to play it again for your reaction. I love the honesty of Bush Hamdan, and we're the bite is longer, but we cut it down for the shorter part. And there are a lot of times, as we both know, coaches can't be brutally honest. But occasionally when they can, when they don't have to be, it's really good. So I have no clue who's going to be the stand-up line. I'd be throwing darts against the wall. And basically this is Bush talking about his wideouts, who does he think will be the best executing, who'll be this, who'll be that, who'll be whatever. It's a bunch of guys. Maybe they'll all be great. I have no clue. This was his answer, and I loved it because of its honesty. And then when we come back, I want you to respond. Here's Bush Hamdan.
We'll see. I don't have an honest answer to that. I think there has been some inconsistency or holding certain guys to that standard of being the one, and to be that one, it's got to be every single day. But then from a depth standpoint, it has been impressive.
I love the honesty. Mark, when he said that, your reaction?
Well, having seen them at the open practice, I think the most gifted wide receiver they have is Hardly Gilmore, but he's young, and he came to school early, and obviously was at Kentucky and then was briefly at Nebraska and then came back. So but I think he's the most physically talented player they have at that position. The player that I think has been overlooked is Troy Stellato, who's probably been the most productive wide receiver they have on the roster. He came in from Clemson. I think his issue's been just staying on the field, injuries. But when he's out there, he has made catches, and he's a slot receiver. And I think he may be a guy you'll see Calzada go to a lot in third and shorts, or when they need something across the middle. One thing that worries me a little bit, I haven't heard one mention of Jamori Macklin this whole offseason. And when this thing started, I thought he would be the number one receiver, and maybe he will be. But it worries me a little bit that there just hadn't been more buzz around him.
There hasn't been any buzz, and I'm a little surprised too. And I didn't realize this until the news broke, but that Ty Bryant, who was a great baseball player, as you know, in high school, and ran back, I'm trying to get the exact number from his dad, who's going to look it up for me, ran back a lot of kicks for touchdowns, that he beat out Macklin for returning punts. And Stoops basically said because they had some issues last year with just catching the ball and fielding the ball with position, because you don't want to give up yards that way before you try to run the ball or not. So that kind of surprised me, because I was kind of saying, okay, one more year here, maybe he'll be a really good return guy as well.
Well, that was a big issue, and I give Stoops and UK credit that they recognized it and addressed it. Because they were not good at fielding punts, just catching the ball before it would hit and roll 20 yards. It's interesting. My colleague John Hale looked it up. The last time I think Kentucky had a defensive player as its primary punt returner was Randall Burton in 2011. So it's been a while. But yeah, it was interesting. Stoops said that Ty Bryant's baseball background, he thinks, helps him judge punts. So he is good at, catching, judging where it's going to come down and catching it. And you can't, give up, 20 yards, 30 yards of field position because you don't field punts. That's something that is a margin of error factor. And at Kentucky, the margin of error is going to be narrow in SEC games. So you need to be on top of little things like that. So I give UK credit for recognizing that is an issue and trying to address it.
And I give John Hale credit for looking it up. And I got to tell you, I didn't use it yesterday, but I remember when I saw his name on Twitter, Randall Burden, the show was over. When I saw it, I went, I don't remember Randall Burden. No disrespect to Randall Burton. I didn't remember.
He was a cornerback from LaGrange, Georgia.
The sort of end of the LaGrange pipeline is.
He was on the tail end of the pipeline. That's correct.
They got some really nice players out of LaGrange. That's really good. Do you get a feel as to the guys who left, how they're thought of in their different places?
Well, there've been a lot of. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but there've been a lot of stories written this week about guys, where they are on the depth chart. There are a lot of former Kentucky players who are starting at power conference teams, which I think is interesting. I don't, my opinion, I don't think Kentucky's problem in these last 3 years that I think a lot of the fans have felt have been disappointed. I don't think the problem has been talent. I agree. I think they developed a culture issue, and I think we've talked before. My opinion, I think when the free transfer came in, I think they were afraid of losing their most talented players, so they weren't as willing to hold people to account. I think that eventually sort of caught up to them.
Couldn't agree with you more. And that, to me, as I've said, is the one thing about Stoops I never understood, because, the Youngstown stereotype, which is legit, and a tough guy, which is legit, and all that kind of stuff, he lost his way. And I think it's possible and maybe easier today than years ago to turn it back around, because you can bring in so many players quickly who will play for you without sitting out and those kinds of things. So I actually think if you do it right, it could be an advantage for Kentucky, not a disadvantage for a program, any program that has to make a lot of changes if you do it the right way.
Yeah, I think it is possible. If you look at Kentucky coaches, almost every Kentucky football coach has some degree of success, and nobody in my lifetime has sustained it as long as Mark Stoops did. But I don't think there's any evidence of once the program slipped back, nobody's been able to get it back on track at Kentucky in my lifetime. But there are coaches at schools similar to Kentucky. Matt Campbell at Iowa State, I think we all probably watched them play Saturday, and what was a top 25 game against Kansas State, and they won. He went 4-8 in 2022, and then came back and went 7-6, and then was in 23 and was 11-3 last year. And that's a program that that probably doesn't even have as many advantages as Kentucky has. Now they don't have to play in the SEC, but that to me is sort of backs up what you're saying, that you can get it back on track in a way now that was hard to do in the past.
And I think he's one of the better coaches in the country. And as you know, he's turned down all kinds of jobs, and he's made sure his assistants gets more money, and could have left many times for more money. And I don't know this. I'm not close enough to Iowa State. I got a couple friends who went to Iowa State that we've texted up and back. I wonder, I don't know this, Mark, but I wonder if some people appreciate him a little bit more because, one, he's won a lot at Iowa State for a program that hasn't won. And two, he could have left but wants to stay. And I think there's some bond that you get with your program when he could have jumped ship for both more money and what's deemed, with no disrespect, a bigger school.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if I've ever known an Iowa State fan. I don't think I have. But yeah, I think your assessment is correct.
Do you think there's any little bit of a hangover? I had Chris Chenault on the air, I think it was last week. And I love Chris. When I build a show, No Filter, Mark, I think he's more no filter than me. I don't know. I'm not sure it's even close. He's still mad at Stoops for wanting to go to Texas A&M, and he brought it up. I didn't bring it up. So he said if he then later acquiesced and basically said, well, if Kentucky goes to a bowl game, then I would shake Mark Stoops' hand. But he wasn't lawyer. He went on and on. It was great radio, but it's no BS. That's just how he feels. But here's what I wonder. I wonder if there are some Kentucky fans, whether they consciously or unconsciously think about it, that bother them a little bit, because I know what I found out. He was jumping ship until the AD screwed it up, and then they didn't want him. And I think that makes people look at you differently in sports society. And I wonder if that little hangover has had a little effect, or maybe a lot of effect, or maybe no effect on Kentucky fans who are less apt to be patient with Mark Stoops because of that, because he did have 1 foot out the door, actually 2 feet out the door.
Yeah, I think for some people that is definitely a factor. I mean, you're occasionally people mention it, and you certainly see it mentioned on the message boards. At the time, I thought it sort of made sense. I thought Mark had done good work at Kentucky, and if he wanted one more challenge, I thought that was understandable. And it also obviously helped that there was an obvious successor that would have, I think Kentucky would have moved quickly to hire John Sumrall, and I think the fans would have been on board with that. So I personally didn't really understand, feeling betrayed or whatever, because Mark Stoops overall has done a really good job at Kentucky, and if he wanted to, try something else, I thought that was okay. But I think you're right. I do think there are people for whom that is an issue.
And if they hired someone right away, which would have been a great move, I think, for Kentucky and Sumrall, my feeling is the man has improved the quality, had he left then, the quality of the program and how it would be so much more attractive to anybody now versus when he showed up, when it was really, really, really bad. So, yeah, I mean, before last year, he improved the program tremendously. I think you have to say thank you, but you and I are a little different than maybe some fans.
Right. We're more detached. We're not as emotionally involved in the team. I mean, so so I think that is I think that allows us maybe to see it a little differently than some of the fans do.
I do, and I agree. And you're a Kentuckian who's followed Kentucky your whole life. And if I'm stepping on bad territory, I don't think I am, but I'm going to try it. I think deep down you really, really want Kentucky to win, but you keep your objectivity. That's always been my perception of you when I read you. You're saying, okay, I want Kentucky to win, but wait a second. If it's black, it's black. If it's white, it's white. That has nothing to do with the fact that you're a Kentucky boy. Do I read you correctly? And if not, please correct me.
Well, I see my job as just trying to accurately reflect what happens, the good, the bad, or whatever's in between. My life is better. My professional life, at least, is better in every way when the teams I cover are good. So, there is some self-interest there, but I try, once I step in the press box, I try to be, as even Steven as I can be.
I think that's a perfect way of putting it. With all the bad years that we both covered UK football, and then I was doing the Bengals for all those years, and when Kentucky football was bad and the Bengals were really bad, it was a tough weekend. And I had a lot of them, Mark.
Yeah, you did.
Last thing, anything else about Kentucky football that's on your mind that I didn't toss at you that's a passionate thing?
I think they really need to. I think they need to win at least 3 games in September if they're going to do anything, or they're going to get back to bowl eligibility. You look at how tough the October schedule is. You have at Georgia, you have number 1 Texas, and you have Tennessee. Again, it's a game that sets up great for them, but they never beat Tennessee. So October is tough. So I think you need to win 3 games in September to give yourself a chance then in the back end of the schedule to go for a bowl. The other thing, I think they really need to win some SEC home games. They're 2-11 in their last 13 SEC home games. There is no way to succeed at Kentucky if you can't, defend your home turf against league foes at a better rate than that. So the home schedule is very difficult, but I think they need to at least win 2 of them.
Yeah, and it's amazing how that's an area where Stoops had gotten much better, and it just boom fell apart.
Yeah.
Last one. Sorry for stepping on you, Mark. Last one. I'm now looking at a Kentucky perspective. I get that Tennessee has other rivalries and stuff like that. I'm not going to say it's criminal if they don't have Tennessee on a regular basis. I wonder how the Tennessee fans feel about Alabama and, the hugeness of that game. But not everybody's going to be happy when they figure this out, who your permanent opponents are and stuff like that. We all get that. But would that be a really low blow for Kentucky fans if they decide that Tennessee is not somebody they play every single year?
Yeah, I think it would be unfortunate. I think Tennessee is the team that, most Kentucky, I think it's the SEC game that most Kentucky fans care the most about. You look at the history of the series, I don't think there's any question that the entity that has caused the most pain to University of Kentucky sports fans in all sports and all the world is the Tennessee football program. But it is the game that people point, toward. And I think if you lose that on an annual basis, it hurts. It's interesting. 3 permanent opponents. You assume Tennessee will keep Vanderbilt an in-state foe in Alabama because it's a historic rivalry. So then the third one, Florida, which was a huge rivalry in the 90s, especially Georgia, a contiguous state, Kentucky, a contiguous state. The other thing I wonder about, I assume Kentucky has, some cachet in men's basketball. Would Kentucky basically go to the SEC and say, look, if we're not playing Tennessee every year in football, we don't want to play them twice a year in basketball? I mean, I don't know. Does that hurt Tennessee or does that hurt Kentucky fans? But, it's just something I think about.
I wonder how much horse trading will go on like that, if at all. I would think every school will put in their 2 cents and then they're going to decide what they decide. From a selfish point of view, I think it'd be sad, but I understand the aroma about that. And let's put it this way. Most things I can say I can decide. Mark, I'm glad I don't have to decide all those rivalries.
Yeah, I think Kentucky fans, the 3 games they care the most about are Tennessee, Florida, and Vanderbilt. I don't know whether Kentucky's going to get any of those as one of their 3.
Yeah, that would be bad. Mark, give yourself a great plug. I really appreciate your time, really appreciate your knowledge, and hopefully you're okay with me calling you a veteran, not an old scribe.
35 years tomorrow.
Hey, God bless you. And Mazel Tov. Congratulations. Seriously, all kidding aside, in today's world, as crazy as the media world is, congratulations, Mazel Tov. I hope you feel great about that. Seriously. I mean, come on. It's an obvious question. 35 years ago, if Andrew said, yeah, Mark, you're going to be here 35 years, you probably would have laughed or said, no way, right?
Well, Alan, I've never had a long-term plan. I'm just trying to get through this week, and then I'll start next week. I'll try to get through next week. So, yeah, I was when I hired at the Herald Leader, I came in answering the phone in sports, and I was just trying to learn how to use the computer.
Well, you're a fast learner, dude. Give yourself a great plug. Thank you, Mark. You just wanted to answer the phones and look where the heck it got you. Hard work, determination means a lot still in today's world.
Foot in the door.
Yep. Give yourself a great plug, please.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, where can we find you?
Oh, well, you can find me at Kentucky.com. Just go to my column site, Mark Story. I'm also on the social media platform known as X. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Threads. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Facebook. So there's all kinds of ways you can find me.
That's getting the gamut everywhere. Hey, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your knowledge.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for having me.
Have a good day. Mark Story. How about that, Jimmy? 35 years.
It's a very long time.
It's a long time. That's a long time. Yeah, I did 30 years plus at TV at 18, but it was in 2 stints. Not 1, but 2. Oh, it's 1:03. Doc's in the waiting room. Doc, I'm late. He's laughing at me. It happens all the time. We'll go to Dr. John Wan coming up next. Blue Lotus Health. Blue Lotus Health. Blue Lotus Health. Acupuncture. 859-533-0914. 859-533-0914. Now also providing a licensed massage therapist. Ramon Carriego, good friend. Helped my neck out tremendously when I couldn't sleep. Got my first night of sleep. Good night of sleep. Last night for the first time since I hurt my eye Memorial Day weekend. I feel like a different human being. He's helped me a lot with my neck and all kinds of other issues. Please check him out. Please use my name. You are worth it. Acupuncture, needles, Blue Lotus Health, on Versailles Road, not too far from the radio station. 859-533-0914. 859-533-0914. Thanks to Mark Story. John Wan coming up next. Alan Cutler, 1300 AM, 92.5 FM.
No Filter Radio with Alan Cutler, brought to you by Quantrell Auto Group. QuantrellForLife.com.
Hi, this is Alan Cutler. Have a no filter comment? Hit the text line, 859-381-1313. 859-381-1313.
It's summertime, and that means it's time to hit the road. Whether you're heading across town or across the state, going on a picnic, to a baseball game, or driving to the lake, stop by, fill up, and stock up at Clark's Pump and Shop, your road trip headquarters.
Clark's Pep and Shop has everything you need to get you to your summertime destination, including assorted Milky Way, Snickers, or Twix share-sized candy bars, 2 for $4, and combos 5-ounce bags, 2 for $5.
Clark's Pump and Shop. Return, refresh, refuel.
Hi, this is Alan Cutler. The Quantrill Auto Group has a great deal for this month. Subaru. The Outback is special, so check this out. 0%. That's right, 0% interest for 36 months. And if you want to spread it out to 72 months, 1.9%. What a deal. 0% interest for 36 months. Don't forget, the Quantrill family of dealerships is the right place to get your next Subaru, and they promise you the best in sales, service, and no gimmicks.
Houchins Insurance Group is proud to partner with Auto Owners Insurance, a company that provides opportunity for independent agents to make insurance simple for their clients, offering risk management services that range from a renter's policy for your college student to home and auto coverage for your entire family. Houchins Insurance Group assures you that nobody works harder to keep you protected from life's uncertainties. Reach out to AJ Boss or Zach Bennett at 859-263-2771 to see if Auto Owners Insurance makes sense for you.
Hi, this is Patrick DiGiacomo, and this is why I would recommend Republic Bank. So, when the bank manager brought me over just to show me how their ITM works, he hit this button where an actual live person came on the screen, and she was so kind and helpful, and it just made me feel like, wow, I'm not dealing with just a machine, I'm dealing with somebody that's actually paying attention to what I'm doing, and it made me feel really good.
And that's how Republic Bank helps their customers go from living to thriving. Learn more at republicbank.com. Member FDIC.
W223CV Lexington. ESPN Sports Radio 1392.5. WLXG Lexington. An LM Communications broadcasting station. The only no-filter sports show in Kentucky. It's the Alan Cutler Show with award-winning TV sportscaster Alan Cutler.
You know, we go by the motto this week of respect all, fear none, and that's going to be all season. So, you know, our opponent's faceless. You know, we have a lot of respect for them. They're going to come in and, you know, we know it's one of their bigger games this season. So, you know, we got to give them the respect that, you know, they deserve coming into this game and give them our best.
Sounds like a quarterback, doesn't it? Sounds like what you want to hear. Sounds like he's been talking to the media for a long time. That was Zach Calzada. And this is a man who has been following sports as much as Zach Calzada, who's been around for about 1,000 years. Dr. John Wong is going to be 25 years old, my partner in Cut to the Chase, and 8 books total now. You're smoking. I wonder how many people in America have written as many books as you have since you wrote your first one.
Probably a few, but I'm not sure there are going to be very many who've written them all within the span of 4 years.
That's what I meant.
That's a heck of a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. Well,
as you know, Alan, my first one started with you, Cut to the Chase, and then I've ended up with Whining for Posterity, which also has a chapter completely devoted to you. So thanks always for your support and shout out and encouragement. You are the best. From that standpoint, though, I do have another bone to pick with you, though.
Uh-oh.
You have Mark Story come on before me, a veteran, a grizzled veteran of the media.
Wait a second, did you just call him grizzled? Whoa, was that a shot, grizzled? You call him grizzled? Go ahead.
But 35 years experience, right? He himself just said, I heard it with my own ears, that when he gets in the press box, he is completely unbiased. He is just trying to document the action. He has no dog in the fight. Then you have me on, which you have called in the past a jock-sniffing UK homer. Now, I dispute that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but you have called me that before. So to see the contrast between Mark and me, I think is going to be tremendously unfair to somebody like me.
You are a jock-sniffing homer.
Look, I predicted this 7-5 season, even when all the others.
I'm surprised you didn't say they were going to win 10 for crying out loud.
No, I'm a realistic jock sniffer. So when I was predicting 7-5 early on, a lot of people were still predicting 3 or 4 wins. So I am tickled to death to see that Alan Cutler has kind of come over to the bright side and joined me in my homerism in predicting a possible potential bowl team, which in my mind means at least 6 wins. I'm hoping I can get you on the 7-5 train pretty soon before this hour is out.
We've been through a lot, you and I together. We have, folks. All those mornings on my kitchen table where
you'll notice that Alan will treat me differently. This is not going to be the Mark Story love fest that you all just heard. You know, he's going to call me out. He's going to accuse me of having bad takes. He's going to say, I couldn't disagree with you more, Doc. I'm shocked at you. I'm surprised at you. I'm disappointed at you. You watch. Those words are going to come out of his mouth when he hears my takes.
Wow, you're even going to let me talk on my own show. That's very kind of you. Well, first of all
right, go ahead. I rest my case, counselor. I am done.
I appreciate your permission to allow me to talk. I know you much better than I know Mark. Mark hasn't sat on my kitchen table all those times with me ad-libbing a book into your cell phone, which creates a bond that is very tight, even though we bust each other chops like crazy. The one thing you did say that really bothered me, I'm not coming over to your side as a homer, one. And two, I wrestled with this for a week. And you know me well enough to know I prepare, I look at stuff, and then I just go. Occasionally, I have what I call internal constipation. And I had a lot of that with this going to a bowl game. One, I really checked myself. I'm not feeling better about the team because it's the talking season. And I really grilled myself internally about that. And that was one. And two, I never want to be called a homer, but by the same token, too, I don't want to go reverse and opposite for the sake of not to be called a homer. What I'm trying to do is just, what is my honest opinion? Which is what Mark said in his own way about what happens when he steps in the press box.
He was a little bit more hesitant to admit that than I thought he would be. You know, you came flat out and asked him, you essentially want UK to win, and he did not say yes. He kind of tap danced around it and said, yeah, it's a little bit better for everybody involved. And in Kentucky, if Kentucky does well, it's good for my readership and things of that. I'm paraphrasing, but he didn't come right out and say, no.
But he didn't say no either. So I thought that was his way of answering the question. Look, I'm not accusing Mark of anything, but I think deep down he wants Kentucky to win. But here's what I think Mark did that you wouldn't understand because you haven't done it, even though I've explained it to you. This is what Mark knows, and I know, and I'll tell you this, but you're still going to get it wrong.
Yeah, here comes the lecture. Yes, Papa. Go ahead.
Wow, you're really, well, good for you throwing it back at me. Mark has trained, I'm being serious now, all kidding aside. Mark has trained himself that when he walks into the press box, he's got to put on a different hat. By the way, and I respect that. I have too, by the way. Now, I can feel good about a Kentucky play and Kentucky doing well, whatever. But how many times have we sat next to each other and I said, oh, man, that was a lousy block. Oh, that didn't do that, or that didn't do that, in the banter when I'm driving you crazy. And then when I'm not there, you say you miss me, but I drive you crazy when you're watching the game. It's like, you know, you want me there or not? Because we end up sitting next to each other. So I understand what Mark is doing. It's a training thing. And I got to tell you, I had to train myself. And this sounds silly. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy even when I went covering Boise State. I have no ties to Boise. I got ties now. Obviously, Judy's from Boise, and I love Idaho. I really do. But even when I started covering them without really knowing anybody, I didn't know Judy then, I wanted Boise State to win. And so I actually trained myself then. And then you spend so much of your life in Lexington. And look, I'm very lucky with the relationships I've had with former athletes. I'm very lucky. You want them to succeed, and they know that. The athletes know that, but I'm going to be honest. And I think Mark is doing it the same way I do, but he communicates it differently. And I could be wrong.
In fairness to those of us who run the so-called fan sites, I mean, you don't see me when you're sitting by me. We're not high-fiving, and you don't see me jumping up and down when Kentucky scores on an 80-yard touchdown pass. So externally, I've certainly trained myself. Hey, you're in the press box. You don't want to get thrown out. You don't want to do anything that's going to upset the powers that be in a working press box. So yes, of course, you're going to train yourself. But My contention is it would be impossible for somebody in my position who's been a Kentucky fan, a Kentucky football fan, also, mind you, for the past 55 years, not to have an exceedingly great rooting interest in how the team does. So if you want to call me a homer from that aspect, yes, absolutely. I'm a homer, but I still do have some objectivity. If they make a bad play, if they poop the bed, I'll be the first one to call them out also.
No, you won't be the first one. That's a lie.
All right, I'll be the fifth one then.
I don't know about that, but you won't be the first. And you generally do have objectivity, but it's not as good as you think it is.
Yeah, probably not. I admit it's biased. Blue colored glasses. These glasses even have a little bit of a truly a blue tint to it. But on the other hand, I think that's also what sets me apart from some of the other run of the mill guys out there also. You need guys like me.
Well, look at that run of the mill. You called some of your peers run of the mill. Aren't you condescending? And by the way, part of it, and I think UK does a good job of this because I've been in a lot of press boxes, so have you, where the local team media is cheering. And that's BS. You shouldn't do that. And if you start cheering, in the press box, they're going to come over and say something to you. And you know what? That's their right. They're trying to handle it in a professional manner. There were some places early on, especially in the South where I went to, and there was just like outward cheering. And I remember looking around, and I was pretty young then going, what the heck is going on? So I have to think that's wrong. Now, do most people who cover a team want them to win? Absolutely. And here's the other thing. When people say, the media is negative, there's almost nobody who covers a team. There's always exceptions who want the team to lose. And sometimes when fans label, well, they're just being negative or something like that, oftentimes they're just being objective and the fan doesn't like that. And that's okay too. But a lot of people get labeled something and it's just not true.
Can I put you on the spot with this one question? I like asking questions that put people on the spot.
Especially me.
Yeah, especially you on your show.
Go, please. No, okay. Of course you do.
I've heard you say in the past.
You shouldn't even have to ask.
I've heard you say in the past that in the post-game media scrums, whether it be basketball, mainly basketball, but maybe you're also referring to football and other sports, that you've seen just way too many media types who don't belong there. And by don't belong there, I'm thinking you're referring to all these internet fan sites that have sprung up and developed over time. Am I portraying you correctly in saying that there is no place in the post-game media scrum for those groups?
Okay, here's your problem with that. I have said that. I know backtrack from anything. If you have look, somebody down the street could start their media site. And if there are 12 people who they can get to follow them, they can therefore apply for credentials. And there are some of these sites where you really don't know how to do your job, but you're there as a fan. And I don't think they belong there. One, I'm not backing off of that. Two, and I really believe this because it has to be.
And by the way, Alan, that's not their problem. That's UK's problem.
No, hang on. Let me finish and then you jump back at me. Two, and I don't have the number, okay? But I do believe everything, there's cutoff points. So if you have a site and there's only 12 people subscribing to you, you shouldn't be able to get a credential. And by the way, if I'm wrong, that's okay. I'm just telling you what I believe. And so it's not like you need to have, tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of numbers. And I don't really have the number. I'd like to see what the numbers are. But I think some of the people who are there are really not trying to be journalists. And some of the people there are just fans. And God bless them, more power to them if they've hustled a credential. But you've talked to some people. I actually think there's a lot of really good media people that cover Kentucky. I really honestly believe that. But there were times, and I've complained to UK about this, that there'd be somebody who writes for a site who has almost nobody reading them, and they put all the TV people upstairs. And the logic for that was, well, Cutler, I can't put you downstairs and put Rob Bromley upstairs. And you know what my response to that is? Rob Bromley should be on the floor. I should be on the floor. And whoever it's with Channel 36 should be on the floor. This is before Fox. And so there's a fairness issue there where TV, which had tons more people watching them, and then, we started getting sites too. TV was almost put as almost like a second class citizen versus everybody who wrote. And I just think that's wrong. And by the way, it's not just Kentucky, it's everywhere. And I took offense to that. And, if you've covered the team for decades and decades and decades and decades, and you're in TV and you're a sports director, you should be on the court. Not because it's me, but because there's a fairness issue. Most fans don't care about this debate and stuff like that. And I'm not going to mention names, but I know, and a couple were friends of mine. They're on the floor and there's not 100 people reading their stuff. And that's just wrong. It's just like, okay, well, we're doing all these people down here, so let's do that, and then we'll lump these other people upstairs. It's just wrong. And I don't care what anybody says. You're entitled to your opinion.
They took care of that right now by putting everybody up on the roof. So we're all at the same level now. It's a level playing field for sure.
Is everybody now up in the roof?
Yeah, pretty much so. I think there are a few of the TV guys who are still down there in the select spots, and of course, all the photographers.
No. TV guys are not downstairs.
All right.
No.
All right.
No. When I got kicked upstairs, Rob got kicked upstairs. 36 got kicked upstairs. We were all kicked upstairs together. And their point was, and I get it, you can't just put Alan Cutler down low and not put Rob Bromley down low. You can't be unfair to Rob. And that's when I even went to Rob and said, he said, well, what did you say? I said, you belong downstairs as much as I do.
Yeah. Well, even now with women's basketball, I've seen Alan Cutler operate, and I want to hang around with you, Alan, because I know if there's any chance of getting on the floor, Alan Cutler's going to be there, and I'm going to be right behind him.
It'd be interesting if I'm on the floor this year after I was critical over one move.
Well, they changed the credentialing process now for the women too. No longer can you utilize that season UK sports pass anymore. You have to actually apply game by game for women's basketball.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's different.
Wait a second. Can't you just check mark every game like you did for football this year?
No, not if you're a peon guy like me.
Wait a second. You have to put a credential in for every single game?
I believe so. Yeah.
I've never done that.
You may be able to apply for all of them at one time and take this with a grain of salt. And nobody else cares except the people in the media anyway.
We need to chomp on something else.
Let's move on.
Yeah, really. This has become too inside. People going, I want to listen to that crap. Biggest question mark in your mind coming into the football season is?
It's quarterback. It's always quarterback. I mean, Zach Calzada, you heard him on the little tape there. He's saying all the right things. I'm wondering, I do notice that he's trying to pull back a little bit on the game manager comments that he made a few weeks ago. And I think it was you said he was just parroting what the coach was saying, and he probably was. But the guy evidently has a heck of an arm. And I can't wait to see it. So I'm thinking they're going to run the damn ball. And after they're finished with that, he's going to be able to kind of fire some darts down the field that's going to really show what this guy is. Game manager, probably not. There's still a little bit of a down the field gunslinger in the guy. And I hope that's the case. That's going to be a lot more exciting. I
think it was semantics. And I think he was parroting that because he thought it was the right thing to say. I don't know this, but it seemed obvious. And Stoops' response to that, because he was asked that, Zach Calzada said he's going to be a game manager. And Stoops said it the same way, but a little differently. It's very smart how Mark Stoops said it. He said, hey, we want to run the ball and take the shots when they're there. Okay? A gunslinger doesn't think like that. A gunslinger says, I want to rip it downfield. Well, that's not what Mark wants. Mark Stoops does want, whether it's Zach or Cutter or you, God forbid, to take shots downfield when they're open because it's a high probability play. And so I actually think, although semantically it's a little different, I really think it's the same thing. I think that's what Stoops is saying. You're a game manager. You're going to run. And take the shot when it's there. A gunslinger doesn't go, I'm going to run. And I think what he's done is all the one-on-one with Bush, which he did, as quarterbacks do. I think that's been pounded in his head. And I think he's like all quarterbacks. They're trying to placate and be the good company man as a spokesman for the team. He's trying to say the right thing. I think the same thing, but semantically slightly different. And I don't mean any disrespect what I'm saying to anybody.
And we do know the Mark Stoops formula for success is to run the ball, stay ahead of the chains, avoid third and long. And go down the field occasionally when it's open, but this is what they need to get back to. Unfortunately, I think he deviated from that for the last couple of seasons, and look where it got him.
Well, they couldn't run the ball and they couldn't stop the run. So you're not going to win. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a gunslinging team. You can't run the ball unless, you're 90% of the teams in college football, if you can't run the ball, you're not going to succeed. And if you can't stop, so that's, do you remember, or was this before you lowered your life and became a media person? Did I say that? Early on with Stoops for years. Oh, did I take a shot at you? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Early on, do you think I owe you that? Of course I do. Early on, now I'm being serious now, Stoops said this many times, and he kept on bringing this one stat up. I'm drinking green tea, and it's getting stuck in my throat. Green tea with some fermented milk and some organic cocoa, which is not very good tasting chocolate, but really, really healthy with a little bit of honey, and it's sticking in my throat. You need to drink stuff like that. It'd be healthier for you. But some reason my tongue is sticking up to my palate, which is not a good thing. Anyway, he kept on pointing out, and I forgot the number, but the number of times every team won in the Southeastern Conference, the percentage when you rush for at least 1 yard more. And he kept on bringing that up for quite a while, partially, I believe, in defense of his style, and said, this is the winning formula, this is what I brought here, and this is what'll work. And the truth is, had they been able to continue doing that, they wouldn't have lost so many the last couple of years.
In both of their 10-win seasons, I think Kentucky averaged close to 200 rushing yards a game. They held their opponents to just a little bit over 100 rushing yards a game. That's a heck of a disparity, and that's one that evidently is going to guarantee you some wins. So I think if Kentucky can get back to that, and here's why I feel so positive about it. When you look at the areas of the team that supposedly are a lot better than they were last year, it's O-line, it's running backs, it's tight ends, all these positions that are conducive to being able to run the ball. I still think Stoops would rather run the ball every single time if he could.
No, he wants to pass the ball to help set up the run. Yeah. By the way, let me ask you this, and this is just me. Stoops has his style. God bless, more power to him. He's won a lot of games. Okay, you can look at the last 2 years. The man's won a lot of games in a program that's been a have-not.
The most winningest coach in University of Kentucky football history. You can't take that away from him yet.
You have to respect that. But, of course, if Bear Bryant stayed longer, he still wouldn't be the winningest coach in the history. So just, put that in the back of your cranium, too, because that also is true. But they're both true. They're both absolutely true.
And he still does have a losing record, technically, after they took all those wins away from him. So I think he's still probably 7 games under 500 or something like that.
I don't pay attention to the wins they took away. I really don't. I think that's BS. By the same token, too, equally, as far as I'm concerned, Louisville won the national championship in basketball. I mean,
my point being that you want your coach, who is the winningest coach in your program history, to at least have a winning record over 500.
Well,
that was my point.
And I'm with you on that. But you know what? This program sucked so bad the first couple of years he was here.
You'll take anything.
No, look, the record. You are what your record says. I get that. But if you lopped off the first 3 years, I think the record would obviously look different, even as bad as it was the last 2 years. And I stand by what I said the day he was introduced on that Sunday in my closing stand-up. I said, if Mark Stoops is any good, if was the word I used, you got to give him 5 years because the program is in horrible shape and you are not going to win at Kentucky with true freshman offensive linemen. You're going to have to be able to redshirt really good linemen and have them be in their 5th year to have a layer effect. That's paraphrasing what I said, but I used the word if, and I stand by it then, and I stand by it now. And so,
it's in the book, by the way.
Oh, I forgot it is in the book. Cut to the chase. That was, you've gotten really good about plugging every other book, but mine, you've learned how to plug. But
that is not true. That is absolutely not true.
You were terrible.
I plugged Cut to the Chase plenty of times.
Well, no, you do now. When we started, admitted you didn't want to plug anything. You said, I'm just here to be the co-author. You didn't want to plug it now.
True.
And now I give you credit. You've gotten out of your shyness.
No, because I've had to. If I had my druthers, all I'd rather do is just write the darn thing. But with some of these books, you've got to get out there and you've got to let people know that they are out there, that they're worth reading, that there's a certain point in being able to purchase and talk about it and to spread the good word and let other people know about it. So that's all part of the ball game. But
And you know what? If you're a football coach, you just can't coach games. You have to say pony up.
Hey, but that's a really good point. I heard you talking about Jason Campbell, the Toledo coach, the other day, and how impressed you were with him. And I assume that you don't know a heck of a whole lot about him, but I listened to that one press conference, and yeah, he kind of bowled me over. In fact, he sounded exactly like Mark Stoops and saying all the right things, only it seemed like he said it better. He said it with a bit more confidence, with a bit more believability, with a bit more passion than Stoops did out there. I think that makes a difference. I'm interested, just as interested as you are, to see how this guy is doing because he's been there 9 years. He does have a winning record. They've won over half their games every single year. And my thought also was the same as yours. Great minds think alike. Why isn't this guy coaching at someplace else? Because at least from speaking, he seems like he knows what he's talking about.
He does seem like he knows what he's talking about, and I agree with everything you said except for one thing. And I thought of this at the time when I was thinking about how impressive I thought he was. It was a 17-minute press conference, and I went through the whole thing and picked some bites to send to Jimmy to come on. Here's what I thought of at the time that you didn't think of. I wouldn't talk to anybody else doing my show like this, but okay.
Let that be your honor exhibit A for how Alan Cutler mistreats me. Treats me with such disdain and disrespect.
I don't know filter guests. I know filter my comments and my monologue, and I've said that many times. So if you listened, and I don't have the answer, but I thought about this immediately, by the way, about a minute and a half in when I said, I really like this guy. If you listen to 50 of his press conferences, not that I'm suggesting that you should, would you feel the same way? In other words, because you've heard Stoops a million times, you already have a preconceived notion and you've heard him a lot. The other thing you didn't hear with Jason Campbell, he wasn't defensive about anything. Stoops gets defensive. He gets defensive a lot, which always has surprised me, but that's his style. You know, I don't want to say anything. It'd be taken out of context and it'll be blown up and stuff like that. In that 17 minutes, you felt none of that from Jason Campbell. Now, let's also, in defense of Stoops, the media in Toledo is going to be different than the media in Lexington. There's a lot more media attention. And I'll bet there's more, I don't know this, but I would bet you a cup of coffee, and I don't mean this in any disrespect, there's more homers in the media in Toledo than there is even in Lexington, Kentucky. That's pretty par for the course in smaller towns. So if you want to go listen to 10 of his press conferences, but he's very, very, very impressive. Plus, I would bet you another cup of green tea that he took over a better program than Stoops did. Because, you know, Toledo's been better than Kentucky. I think if you look at the record, I haven't looked at it, but, you know, my perception, they've been a better program winning-wise. I didn't say they had more talent than Kentucky. So he probably stepped into a better situation. What I really like about him, I've been huge forever about people that come from small programs. I think it's just total BS that you have to come from an Alabama or something like that, or where did this guy come from? It's nonsense. You can learn how to win anywhere. And Mount St. Union, where he came from as a wide receiver, won 2 national championships when he was there. And I knew Nick Sirianni played there, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together. That's a Jimmy. Kudos to Jimmy yesterday. That was a great thing Jimmy came up with, that he and Sirianni, the Eagles coach, were on the team together, and they started coaching right after their career for the college. Now, you know this. I don't care if it's Kentucky. Were they really? Jimmy just added another thing. I did not know this. Kudos to Jimmy. They were roommates in college, too. Yay, Jimmy. And so if you're leaving a school and they think so much of you that you start to coach as a GA and that kind of stuff, but you're not going to, you know, somewhere, that's really impressive. So this guy, they've won 13 national championships, and he was part of a bunch of them. I think you're trained differently. I really do. And I think what I heard from Jason Campbell is kind of a no-nonsense confidence that this is how you do it. And the other thing he said that I loved, every coach is saying the same thing. Oh, I got to be careful with the guys I bring in with the NIL and all that kind of stuff. Every coach says that. Stoops says that. He says they all say that. Okay. But you know what he said that I love? He said, if I bring in the wrong guy, he said, there'll be a lineup outside my door if my players come to talk to me. It said two things. One, his players are trained properly. Two, his players feel comfortable enough that they would say, hey, coach, what the heck are you doing? And I think that's really powerful.
I don't know him from Adam. The only thing that I was going off of was that, yes, that 17-minute press conference. You're right. I was hearing him for the first time, but I go and I listen to a lot of coaches for the first time. I do that in covering Kentucky. A lot of times I'll go to the visiting team's press conference just to hear their coach speak. When I did NFL, the Bengals, I would try to hit all the other opposing coaches. So this idea of speaking, I'm just saying that in that 17 minutes that I heard him, he was extremely, extremely elegant, portrayed a sense of confidence that just made me think this guy knows what he's talking about. For example, with Stoops, and I'm not denigrating him. You are who you are. This is the way Stoops is. His persona is one of kind of this roll your sleeves up, blue collar, Youngstown guy. He's talked infinitely about changing the culture, right? The culture change is a big, big thing this year. I think with Candle, he didn't just say, I've changed the culture. He says, we've created a culture that expects success. To me, those 4 or 5 words, that's the way that you want to kind of frame it. And so to hear somebody talk like him, it doesn't matter. I still think Kentucky is going to kick Toledo's butt, but it does make me pause and wonder, okay, maybe in the preparation, maybe in just the way he's able to pull his team together, maybe in his coaching style, they may be able to hang with Kentucky for maybe a quarter, maybe a half.
I agree with so much of that. It really hurts. Yeah, I also listen to opposing coaches. Yeah, I also, would listen to opposing coaches, whether it's, Bengals or Kentucky playing and stuff like that. He has an air of confidence in himself.
There was something about him, even in the way the Homer guys were asking his questions. He would be direct, but he wouldn't be giving away the farm either. So I think he's got something up his sleeve. You don't win all those football games, especially against top quality competition. In fact, I think he was asked why Toledo has done so well against like the Mississippi States, against Pitt last year. And his answer was that they were able to kind of keep their emotions in check and respond during the game, during the points when adversity hit. That's a big, big key. I mean, that could have been Stoops saying that. He just wouldn't have said it quite as eloquently.
Hurts again, but I agree. The other thing he said that I really, really liked, by the way, we're on YouTube, and I don't. I want to.
Hey, so let me show my shirt then, right? This is the Casa Run. By the way, thanks for the birthday shout out the other day. I am a new man. I went in there and I burned up the old man category. I got first place in my first 5K race in quite a while. I hadn't run in one since before COVID. So I was pleasantly surprised by my times. I was pleasantly surprised by my award-winning trophy. I still got it, Alan. I may be a homer for the University of Kentucky, but I can still run.
Congratulations for winning the division in the 90 and over. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah, it was old man. I confess, but still, it still was first place, man.
And by the way, this thing is not growing very much at all. I mean, our online listenership is growing tremendously. Our podcasts are growing tremendously. Ratings are going up, and we just started the YouTube. It's the ESPN Sports Radio 1300. Have you subscribed?
No, I have not. So I'm probably guilty from that account.
And
you need to grow it organically. It's one at a time.
But it's very, I think we had 12 people yesterday or something like that. I want to fix the background or something. I need to talk to Sean. I didn't like the background, how it is. We're working on it. When we get it to where I like it, I'm glad we're doing it. It's my thing that said, let's just do it. But I don't expect our background to look as good as, let's say, if Dan Patrick or Rich Eisen are doing something on national shows. I get that, different budgets and those kinds of things, but I want to make it look better. So That's just me where that
And
comes
from a
from.
personal standpoint, one-on-one, it helps so much, I think, when you can see the other person on the other end. So whether the listeners or the viewers out there care at all, I think it does help you and it helps all of your guests. Whether you're a Mark Story, a grizzled seasoned veteran sports writer for the Kentucky Herald Leader, or a Dr. John Huang, a jock sniffing homer for the University of Kentucky, writing for a fan site that nobody really reads or cares about. I think it helps. It helps the interaction.
I'm so glad you know who you are.
Yeah, know yourself, know your enemy. But anyway, have I, not to take over your show, but I know we're running out of time. How
we're
much
running
more
out.
time are we going to talk predictions, or what's the deal on that?
I was going to chop you off about 9 minutes ago. Your best prediction you have for Kentucky football is?
I think the 7-5 kind of tops it all, because especially when that first came out, nobody really believed it. And there was a method to my madness, because seriously, when you look at how much better this team is, last year you had a team in which the offensive line gave up 35 sacks. So many sacks. Brock Vandegrift was running for his life the entire time. I think it wasn't the best coaching by Bush Hamdan, allowing him to take all those hits very, very early. I don't know if that's a coaching thing or whether Brock took it on himself to do that, but that essentially set the stage for the disaster of a season that was to come. But if you look at the improvements, they are much, much better. And everybody's saying the schedule is daunting. And yes, it's difficult. You've got 6 opponents ranked in the top 25, but that's preseason. You don't play football in a vacuum. All these other teams are dealing with quarterback issues and transfer portal, and half the team being new guys. There's no one saying that they can't self-destruct by the time they come around. The game against Tennessee, I think, is winnable. I think the game against Auburn is winnable. I think it's super, super important for Kentucky to get out of the gate early. I know you asked for just one thing, but I gave you probably 4 or 5, but that's why I am feeling so optimistic.
Good. Anything else with passion you didn't tell me today that you want to either chop on my you know what, or come at me, or just in sports in general?
I think in sports in general is this idea of that we know what we're talking about in terms of predictions. They are just predictions. And here's what's really scary. If Kentucky were to somehow poop the bed and lose on Saturday against Toledo, I do wonder how many people would reserve the right to change their prediction for a 2-10 season. I think a lot of people, right?
Yeah, but I'm not changing mine. I said they're going to go to a bowl game. Now, if they lose to Toledo, will that be difficult? Yeah. Yeah. So, it's a prediction. And look, how many times have we seen that somebody putting in a bracket for the NCAA basketball wins a gazillion dollars or whatever, wins a pool, and they don't watch basketball, right? Or God bless a grandmother or grandfather who fills it out and doesn't know Creighton or a Blue Jay or Boise State or Broncos, and they're much better than I am. And I get that. So it's just a prediction. I wouldn't put any solace into any prediction I make, but I wanted to come up with something that I believed in, and I sat on it, and I believe they're going to go to a bowl game.
And I do give you the fact that you do study the game. You are much more of a student of the game than a lot of people realize. I mean, this is your enjoyment. I've seen you. You've called me and we've talked for an hour or so about various things, and you're always bringing up things that you've read in the paper and columnists that you enjoy following, and you're sending me stuff. So I know that you are keyed in a lot more than the average fan is out there. But my point is that if we are so unsure of how this team, a team that we follow intimately, is going to do this year, how in the world can we know anything about how Toledo or Vanderbilt or Georgia or Texas, even though they're supposed to be great? How do we really, really know how good or how bad those teams are going to be. We simply don't. Look, I've been following Kentucky football. I don't have any credibility. I never played the game. I never played college ball. I never played in high school. I didn't play Pee Wee football. But I have been following Kentucky football ever since Bernie Scruggs was running around Stall Field running for his life. And I think that this is probably one of the most difficult years for me to predict. I know I'm sounding a little bit like a politician. Yeah, 7-5. I reserve the right to change my mind. But really, I will not be shocked if they win 4 games. I won't be shocked if they win 8 games. Will I be shocked if they win 10? Probably so. But other than that, anything can happen with this team. I'm hoping for the best. And before you respond, do we have time? I've got one more shot I need to take at that NIL issue that you were talking about.
Really? Got to do it quick.
Okay. All right. What are the chances that if a player comes on with JMI afterwards, I realize it's not pay for play, but they go ahead and JMI says, I've got all these sponsors ready for you. You sign with me. You can still have an agent, but this contract is going to be exclusive to us. You can do whatever you want with an agent, but you can't sign with anything else. That should be legal, right? I think they had the perfect right to be able to do that.
No, you can't. You
and
can't.
Why not? There are all sorts of exclusivity laws in contracts. Are there not?
So in a contract, if JMI signs a deal with UK to do their games and stuff like that, that's an exclusive deal. But you can't bring in over 500 athletes and tell them you must sign with them. You can't do that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if Joe Blow comes in, JMI approaches him and says, we have the option of signing this. I've got Joe's car dealerships and Huang Orthodontics and whatever ready to offer you, to guarantee you $250,000 in order to sign this. Now, we'll do it, but you've got to be exclusive to us.
You can't do that.
All right. You are sure of that? I think you need to look into that.
No, I think you don't know. With all due respect, you're wrong. Seriously.
All right. I accept that.
No, I mean, no, you're wrong. And I'm told.
Just bring it up a point.
No, I understand where you're coming from. It's just not legitimate. Look, would JMI like that every athlete that comes in uses them only? Absolutely. Absolutely. Does JMI?
How is that any different than all these shoe contracts, though?
Well, it is totally different. Just, can I speak?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, so you're a quarterback, and Dr. Wong, you're a quarterback, and JMI is not guaranteeing you anything. JMI is not saying you'll get this coming in the door. Okay? JMI is not saying we're going to promise you $1 million, and then if they only get contracts for $500,000, they don't write a check out for another $500,000.
I'm thinking they already had the money secured. So, yes, they're not promising you beforehand.
Let me finish.
Let me get a piece of tape. I can't help myself. I got to tape my mouth shut.
What Matt Jones said on the show, and he's wrong, and if I'm wrong, I will apologize, but I've got great sources in this, and I know Matt thinks he's got the best sources too, and that's fine. I don't give a hoot about that. You're a quarterback, okay, and you're expecting $1 million, okay? If JMI does not get you deals for $1 million, and let's say they only get $500,000, they don't write you a check for $500,000. They're not on the hook. Can you imagine there's 20 athletes and you're short $20,000 to $100,000? You can go broke. That's not how this goes. You sign with Kentucky. You get your, the money that's divvied up from the 20.5. Hang on. Put the tape back on your mouth. You're about to open your mouth. You get what you're supposed to get, and you talk about that, hey, we think we can get you X. It's kind of what Cal did, by the way, which is interesting. He was not promising players a certain amount. Say, this is Kentucky, we have the best deal. That was his pitch. And he might have lost some players that way. And do I think there'll still be some people that under the table will be getting money that's illegal? I do, by the way. I don't think this is going to be perfect, and I don't think cheating will stop. And do I think some of that will happen that'll have nothing to do with this? I do. Point is this. You're expecting $1 million, but suppose you don't get $1 million. Suppose as these deals go on, as the season goes on, you stink. Well, how are they going to get more car deals for you or something else? Nobody wants to pay any money. And there are deals that happen. Let's say you're a quarterback, and now you've gotten about $500,000, and that's great. Well, now you throw 4 touchdowns against Georgia. Oh my gosh, you're hotter than you know what. You know what JMI can do quickly? Maybe quicker than an agent. Maybe not quicker than an agent. They have all these people involved, and now they want to take care of you for throwing 4 touchdowns in Georgia, and you might get 2-3 deals that week because things happen when they happen. Hang on, don't put the tape back on. You're opening up your mouth.
Yeah, I feel like Cisco Bryant now, man.
No. Because the foundation, what you're saying, my understanding is just not true. I got 2 minutes left, and we got to do this in about 30 seconds. It's pretty simple. You're coming here. Nobody is guaranteeing you, the way I understand, from NIL deals, X number of dollars. Do I think there'll be some wink somewhere, some boosters doing some things? Yeah. Now, the part of the deal is that the NIL that overlooks this thing, this group we have to send deals to, if a car dealership wants you to pay you $100,000 and you're just showing up twice for autographs, they're going to say no to that deal. They can say no, and they will say no. Somewhere in there that's different from what JMI does. You're a quarterback. They have all these companies that they're already working with, and then it's their job for their benefit and you to go put deals together to present to you. Okay, it's not exclusive. Now, let's say you're from someplace, Georgia, and you have a family lawyer who's really good. Well, that person can maybe hook up a couple deals. You don't have to use JMI. Would JMI like you to use them exclusively? Of course they would. But you can get deals from people outside of their umbrella. So you can get it both ways. But it's not a guarantee from JMI, and JMI is not picking up the phone and calling Dr. John Wong, who's a stud quarterback, and saying, we'll guarantee you this or we'll pay you this. They're not doing that. They shouldn't do that. It's horrible business to do that.
No, I think it's horrible business. I hate to disagree, but I think it's horrible business to do it the other way. A promise is only as good as your ability to deliver on it. So if they're able to promise somebody $500,000, they need to be able to kind of guarantee that money's going to come through. And I still think that they can do, if they guarantee that money's going to come through, then they have exclusivity. They have the right to assign exclusivity to that.
But they're not doing that.
I'm probably wrong, but that's just my thought.
Hold on. You're totally wrong. You really are. You're totally wrong of how I understand this thing is going. Totally
All right.
wrong.
Well, I'll expect an apology along with Matt Jones if you end up being wrong on this.
If what Matt said is correct, I will apologize. That's not what. Then I'll not because I apologize to Matt, which I'll do. That my information was wrong. JMI is if you think you're getting $1 million, okay? JMI. They put deals together. You can still get an agent on the outside, okay? If JMI comes up with $500,000, they don't owe the quarterback and writing a check for $500,000. I got to go. It's 1:51.
All right. Thanks for having me, Alan. Really enjoyed it, despite our back and forth. It was fun.
Why is it when you finish with me longer than expected, I get a headache? Hey, Doc, you're the best.
Go enjoy your clear vision. That's great. Prayers answered, man. Yes. Wonderful to see your eye cleared up.
God bless you. Thank you for your friendship with all our chipping up and back. There's nobody else in Lexington outside of my family I trust more, and you know that.
Yeah. That means a lot, Alan. Thanks.
It's also true. Have a great day. Thank you, Doc.
Bye.
www.naturalhealingandpainrelief.com. Terry Page, you can hit that site and sign up for a 15-minute free consultation to say what you need. She'll tell you what she can do, and she's been great to me. Terry's big, beautiful deal. Text her, 859-373-0578. Text her, get an appointment. You get $10 off. $5 for the first appointment, $10 off if you get 2 appointments in succession through the end of the month. Now, the appointments can be half after, obviously, the end of the month, but if you get 2 appointments in succession before August 29th, she'll take $10 off per appointment. Check her out. She's been wonderful for me. Jimmy, today was crazy. I have energy again. It's a wonderful thing what sleep can do. Was this one of the crazier shows, or was it me, my head spinning?
No, it was a little more chaotic. I mean, it's a great time for you to now have all the energy because it's nonstop pretty much now till the end of the tournament.
I'm up for it. I'm late. Jimmy, thank you so much. Thank you, Mark Story. Thank you, Dr. John Wong. Have a great day. Appreciate everyone listening. Appreciate telling one friend. Tell one friend. That's how this thing is growing. It's growing. Thanks to you. Jimmy and Matthew at 10. I'll be back at noon.